Welcome back, dear dreamer. Tonight, we'll travel far beyond the map again to a place where rain once fell every day, until it forgot how. A quiet world of drifting clouds, forgotten books, and the soft ticking of ancient clocks buried beneath ivy and stone. Bye. Before you get too comfortable, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Also, leave a comment, letting us know when and where you are watching from. And without further ado, let's relax ourselves and get ready for a titillating tale. Let go of the day. Breathe out slowly. Settle into your bed, letting the softness carry you like a boat across still water. Inhale through your nose and exhale gently, fully, peacefully. There's nothing more to do. Let the quiet take you. And together, let's step into another place made only for dreaming. There was once a town where it rained every day. Not stormy rain, not harsh or hurried. It was the kind of rain that whispered as it fell. Soft rain, gentle rain. Rain that curled under eaves and kissed the leaves like an old friend. The townsfolk had built their lives around it. The rooftops were wide and cupped, collecting rainwater like palms. Their streets were soft with moss, their windows etched with old rivulets from years of gentle drops. They had dozens of words for rain silver mist, skyfall, thrumlight, hush rain, echo, and every morning, just before dawn, a bell rang from the tall grey tower at the center of town. This was the Rainkeeper's tower. No one remembered when it was built. It had always been there. Even the oldest among them wrinkled and quiet would only smile and say, "Oh, it was already standing when I was born." Inside the tower lived the Rainkeeper, though few had ever seen her. It was said she never aged, never left, and never spoke. But every day, just before sunrise, the bell would ring once. A single chime, as soft as water touching water. And then the rain would begin. Until one day, it didn't. The bell didn't ring. The clouds gathered as usual, bloomed into gentle grey, and hovered patiently in the sky. But no rain fell. Not a drop. Not even a sigh. The town waited. People looked up. Windows remained open. Buckets poised. Umbrellas untouched. The mossy streets stayed dry. It felt impossible. The rain had never not come. At first, they waited. One day, two, perhaps a delay, a hiccup in the clouds. But by the end of the third day, whispers began to pass between them like threads of mist. And so they sent someone. Not a mayor, not a scholar, just a quiet archivist named Corin. Corin lived on the edge of town, beneath a long, sloped roof that once sang under the rain like a lullaby. He catalogued weather patterns, kept notes in hundreds of ink-stained notebooks, and loved the sound of thunder in the distance. P was not brave, but he was curious. And so, on the fourth day without rain, Corin packed a satchel. He placed in it a small umbrella, out of habit. a book of weather lore, a sealed jar of collected rainfall, a piece of clouded glass, and a belagif from someone long gone, small and silver and very quiet. P. The town gathered as he approached the tower, the Rainkeeper's tower, tall, grey, quiet. Its surface was smooth stone, chiseled with carvings of rain and sky, birds and clouds. A spiral staircase, barely visible, wound around its outside and vanished into the mist above. Corin looked up. The bell was there, hanging from the spire, still and silent. He stepped forward, and the door opened, not with a creak, not with ceremony. It simply opened, as though expecting him. Inside, the air was damp, not wet, just rich, like the air before a storm. The walls were lined with thousands of clocks, big ones, small ones, some carved from driftwood, others made from bone, stone, or shell, but none of them ticked. They were all stopped, every single one. Corin climbed slowly. The stairs spiraled up, hugging the inside of the tower like the coils of a sleeping creature. Along the walls, more clocks, more silence. At each landing, he paused to look out the narrow windows. The clouds were still there, waiting. He climbed for a long time, until finally the stairs ended in a wide circular room. At the top, and there, in the center, was a woman. She was sitting cross-legged on the floor. Her hair was silver, her skin the color of riverstone. Her eyes were closed, her breathing slow, and surrounding her were hundreds, no, thousands of tiny glass spheres, suspended in the air. Each one held a droplet of rain. Beige shimmered in the dim light, rotating gently, never touching. Corin did not speak. He simply stood there, listening to the silence. After a long time, the Rainkeeper opened her eye, and she smiled. "You've come," she said, as if she had been waiting for him for a very long time. The Rainkeeper's smile was slow and steady, like the unfolding of mist along a hilltop. She stood from the stone floor with a kind of stillness that seemed older than movement. By the suspended rain droplets floated gently in place. "You've come," she repeated. Her voice didn't echo. It wasn't necessary. The room, like the clouds outside, seemed to lean in and listen. Corin nodded, unsure what to say. "You are not here to fix the rain," she said. "You are here to remember why it stopped." He opened his mouth, then paused. "I don't understand," he said softly. The Rainkeeper turned toward the nearest glass orb. Inside it, the single droplet shimmered. She touched the orb lightly, and it began to spin. "Rain," she whispered, "is memory." Corin blinked. She continued. Each droplet that falls carries a fragment of time, a sigh, a song, a name almost forgotten. It lands and nourishes the soil, yes, but also the soul. That is why it calms you. That is why we feel something stir in us when it rains. It is not the water. It is what it remembers. Corin felt something shift in his chest. A heaviness, but not unpleasant, like the weight of a coat worn for comfort. She walked to the tall window. "Come, you must go higher." Outside the tower, a staircase of soft stone emerged from the mist, spiraling even higher than the tower's spire. Corin followed her up. The clouds thinned, lightened. The air turned cool and sweet. And at the top of a flat, sky-level platform was a single nest. But it was not made of twigs, it was made of time. Old ribbons of scrolls, threads of music, strands of silver bells, and rusted keys. Inside the nest sat a bird the size of a fox, its feathers white with veins of soft blue. The Rainkeeper bowed her head. "The last tempest," she said. Corin stared. "Bah!" The bird looked at him with deep-set eyes that shimmered like ink swirling through tea. It was not afraid. It was not curious. It was simply aware. "Long ago," she said, "the skies were filled with them. Tempest birds. They nested in the high canopies of cloud forests, where time was thin and wild. They did not sing. They remembered." Corin knelt beside the bird. "And this one is the last," she whispered. They kept time for the sky. Each beat of their wings turned the hour. Each blink rewound, or paused, or carried forward. It was not science, not magic. It simply was. Corin watched as the bird slowly opened its wings. Underneath, feathers shimmered, not from light but from memories. She saw them, glimpses. A child pressing a leaf to her cheek, a fox darting through moonlit fog, two lovers tracing raindrops on a window pane. Moments, small and whole. The rain stopped. The Rainkeeper said, "Because time did." Corin frowned. "The bird was wounded," she continued, "by its wing caught in a forgotten hour. It came here to rest. Fire. And while it rests, the clocks do not tick. The rain does not fall. The world waits." The bird turned to Corin, then blinked. And in that blink, Corin was somewhere else. He stood beneath a weeping tree, long silken leaves brushing his shoulders. Rain fell softly. Here, each droplet filled with faint, distant music. He looked to the sky and saw other tempest birds soaring, leaving trails of silver in the air. Then the scene shifted. He stood on a rooftop in the town below, years earlier, watching the Rainkeeper in her tower, silhouetted against a stormlit sky, gently winding 1,000 invisible gears with her hands. Another blink. He sat in his cottage, much younger, listening to the rain with a cup of tea in his hands, unaware that the drops falling outside his window were echoes of a lullaby sung to him as an infant. Then he was back. Back in the sky nest. Back with the bird, the Rainkeeper, the silent. His heart beat slowly. "Why did I see those things?" he asked softly. The Rainkeeper smiled again. "Because the tempest chose you," she said. "It remembered you." Corin lowered his gaze. "And what must I do?" The Rainkeeper knelt beside the bird and brushed her fingers along its wing. A single feather, long and soft and blue-streaked, floated gently to the ground. You must return this to the Library of Lost Weather," she said. "Only there can the wing heal." Corin reached for the feather. It was warm, vibrating gently in his hands, like a sleeping heartbeat. "Where is the library?" he asked. The Rainkeeper stepped aside, and behind her, a doorway formed, not built of stone or wood, but rain, a curtain of water, suspended in the air. "Still waiting. Step through," she whispered, "and remember everything." Corin took a breath. The feather glowed softly in his palm. He stepped through, poof, and the world changed again. Corin stepped through the veil of rain. There was no splash, no wetness, no sound, just a sense of shifting, like passing from one dream into another. The world beyond the rain was not a room, it was a landscape, a vast, endless plain beneath the sky, the color of lavender tea. The ground was soft, carpeted with pale moss and white clover. In the far distance, gently rolling hills rose like the backs of slumbering giants. But it was what stood just ahead that drew Corin's breath. A library, but not made of stone or wood or glass. This library was a living thing. Its walls grew from enormous woven reeds, threaded with strings of pearls and faded ribbons. But spires curved like growing vines, and high above, clouds hung low, not heavy with rain, but pregnant with memory. The air shimmered faintly, like breath on a cold mirror. Corin stepped forward. The doorway opened with no sound, as though the library had been expecting him and simply wished to save him the effort. Inside was quiet. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of listening. And oh, what it listened to. Endless shelves stretched in every direction, some low to the ground, others arcing high above like cathedral ceilings. Instead of books, the shelves were lined with jars. Each one held weather. Some glowed with soft lightning that flickered like candlelight. Others held tiny, swirling snowstorms, perfectly suspended. Some glistened with golden fog or soft blue hailstones, the size of thimbles. There were jars that hummed with warmth, and jars that chilled the air nearby. And each was labeled not with a name, but with a feeling. The storm on her wedding morning, rain that fell during a child's first breath, fog that erased a town's last argument. Corin walked slowly down the aisles, his boots making no sound on the mossy floor. He passed jars that held whispers, jars that blinked like sleepy eyes. One even opened and exhaled the scent of a forest after rain, then closed again with a sigh. For it was not overwhelming. It was comforting. The memories were not screaming to be known. They simply waited, patiently, like books on a shelf, ready for someone to remember. Corin came to a low table where a glowing sign read, "Repairs in progress." Behind the table, an old librarian sat curled in a velvet chair, snoring faintly. Her skin was translucent, like thin milk glass, and her hands twitched gently with the rhythm of unseen dream. Corin didn't wake her. Instead, he placed the feather from the tempest bird on the table. Immediately, the room shifted. Not loudly, but deeply. The air thickened, and the shelves around him rearranged themselves not dramatically, but with quiet intention, like dancers taking new positions in a ballet of wind. Probay. The jar rolled gently down a nearby shelf and stopped at the edge of the table. Corin picked it up. Inside was a storm he recognized, not from memory, but from feeling. It was his own, a summer afternoon when he had stood in a quiet field, overcome by grief, and wept while thunder rumbled miles away. The sky hadn't opened, the rain hadn't come, but now he saw it had been caught, collected, remembered. He placed the jar beside the feather. A second jar rolled forward. This one held a quiet rain that had fallen on the edge of a dream. Pew! He could almost hear the sound of his father humming in the next room. A memory of being very small, holding a wooden spoon and dancing in a circle. Tears came to his eyes, not from sadness, from softness. The jars began to move in rhythm now, not chaotic, but in a slow, spiraling pattern, like orbits in a sleepy galaxy. Each memory brushing gently against the next. Befeathered rose into the air, and behind it a shape formed. By this one, arched and glowing, made not of rain, but mist and lullaby. A sign above it appeared, as though woven out of breath itself. To the hall of first storms, the door opened. Corin stepped through. On the other side was a long hallway lined with puddles. They didn't reflect his image. Each puddle showed a beginning, a first storm, the first time the world felt wet, first thunder to roll across a newborn sky. The first drop of rain that ever fell, landing on an empty mountain with no one there to notice, yet echoing. Corin walked slowly, passing each puddle, each memory. Then he reached the final door. Bore no name. Progester shape. A spiral, soft and endless. He stepped through it, unfound, the tempest bird waiting, not injured now. Its wing had mended, it blinked once at Corin, and from the ceiling above, droplets began to fall. Not many, just a few. B landed gently on the moss, on the jars, on the floor. And far away, somewhere back in the waking world, the first raindrop in days struck the roof of a quiet home. Then another, and another. The rain had remembered how to fall. Brain did not return, all at once. It returned like a forgotten melody, slow, sweet, and strange in its familiarity, as if the sky, long asleep, had rolled over in its bed of clouds and remembered a lullaby it used to sing. The first drops fell with reverence. They touched rooftops as though asking permission, biggest the soil like an apology. They slid down window panes in long, trembling threads, searching for familiar places together. And as Corin stepped back into the world through the misshaped archway, through the Rainkeeper's tower, and finally down the long spiraling stairs, The rain walked with him, not on him, with him, as though it knew him now. And it did. Rain is memory, after all. And memory had awakened. When Corin emerged into the moss-offed streets of the town, the villagers were standing silently beneath wide awnings and old trees. Some held out their hands. Boof! Some closed their eyes. A few wept quietly, tears indistinguishable from the skies. No one spoke. They didn't need to. They could feel. The balance had returned. But something had changed, not the rain itself, but the space around it. Bid fell. Not with the regularity of before, not with the certainty of routine, but with grace, with thought, with feeling. It had become gentle again. The clocks in the Rainkeeper's tower began ticking once more, not loudly, not all at once, but like scattered raindrops against glass. Tick, 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 tick. Time had resumed. Bite. But it, too, had learned to be softer. Corin returned to his cottage beneath the sloped roof that once sang with rainfall. He opened every window, replaced the small silver bell on the windowsill. He lit a single candle, even though the rain provided all the light he needed. He sat in his chair and listened. The rain made no demand of him. It asked no questions. It did not judge. Discipline. It simply fell. Boom. And with each drop, a memory returned, just his, but the world's. A child's laugh beneath an umbrella. A poem once scrawled in the margins of a weather almanac. A moment of forgiveness between neighbors during a midnight storm. The rain was not a tool, not a pattern. It was the heartbeat of remembering. That night, as Corin fell asleep to its rhythm, the tempest bird rested once more. This time, not in injury, but in peace. Its wings folded neatly around its body. It perched high above the clouds on a thread of wind only. It could see. Its job was not to control time. It was simply to remember it. And now, time remembered itself. The Rainkeeper stood at the top of her tower, eyes closed, palms open. Big droplets kissed her cheeks, slid along her skin, like old friends, returning from a long, quiet voyage. She did not smile. She simply breathed in and let the sky breathe with her. Far below, the moss grew richer. The puddles returned to the streets, gathering tiny, floating petals. The rooftops sang their hollow lullabies again. And somewhere in the hills beyond town, a river began to rise. The townsfolk did not rush. They did not celebrate with noise or song. They simply sat in their chairs, leaned against their windows, or walked slowly through the damp streets. Their world had not been fixed. It had been remembered, and that was enough. At midnight, the clouds thinned, just enough for the moon to look through. It, too, remembered. It had seen the rain first form, eons ago, had watched it fall on stone and skin and soil. Now, it watched it fall, again, with meaning, with music, with memory. And so the rain fell again. Not to wash away, not to rush forward, but to gently remind the world of itself. If you are still listening, dear dreamer, Let your eyes fall closed now. Let your breath match the slow rhythm of falling rain. You have walked through forgotten skies and weathered memories. You've helped the clouds remember. Have you filled time with stillness? Now, let the rain fall in your own dreams and sleep. Sleep gently. Sleep deeply. Sleep well. Good night.